Hello, my name is Imani, and you're listening to the Evolving New Now in Learning series. Today, I'm super excited to be speaking to Francesca Demora. She is an architecture student, and she has a lot to tell us about the impact that COVID-19 has had on her training, as well as any insights that she can share about how people and institutions can better support students.
Hi, I'm quite excited to be a part of this as well. I think I do have a lot to say, probably not all the answers, but COVID's definitely had a few positive and negative impacts on me.
Take us to March 2020 and how that impacted the rest of your year.
Well, it seems like forever ago. Lockdown was announced and there was so much uncertainty. I actually had to apply to stay in res because everyone was sent home, but I don't live with my parents anymore. So I ended up staying at res the whole way through hard lockdown. There were like 4 of us in a 600-person res. It was quite scary because we thought it was going to be much shorter than it was.
And how did that impact your learning?
For over a month, we didn't have any work. We kind of just had a 5-6 week holiday because no one knew what was happening. They had to get all the online systems up and running. I'm studying interior architecture. I'm in my final year. Our department works quite differently to a lot of degrees. We're very I'd say close because there's so few of us in a class and you see the same people all the time. You build a lot of good friendships. We work in a studio a lot of the time on practical work in design. So it was completely different. Everything moved online and my university did quite well with setting up the digital tools for us to be able to watch online lectures, be it live or recorded. But it was very different because before, like I said, with design, when we do practical work, we would have, for example, drawings and we would physically draw them out and physically pin them up on a wall. And now everything became digital. So we'd start presenting things on video calls and making PowerPoint presentations. So our mode of design itself completely switched. I was fortunate though in being able to access the digital things, so I'm very grateful for that. And then because I was at res, I had access to the Wi-Fi, and then they still also gave us data to be able to download lectures if we needed it.
You did touch a little bit on the digital architectural stuff. What other softwares were you using during this time, or are you still using as a student?
It's mostly things that I use to make my presentations: PowerPoint, Google Slides, Photoshop, AutoCAD. And I think that on that front, I definitely progressed a lot more because I had to. Whereas if I had the option to just do everything manually by hand and everything, I wouldn't have been forced to develop those skills.
Not everyone had access to those online tools and laptops, as you mentioned. Amongst your friend circle or your peers, how accessible were these tools to the people around you?
I definitely got to see, people who couldn't access the lectures, or maybe they had laptops, but where they live, there's absolutely no signal. I think 2 of my friends had that issue. We had to build models for our architectural designs. And there's a specific shop in Pretoria that we always go to buy materials, and people who live in other provinces in the middle of nowhere don't have access to those. My other friends don't even have within 100 kilometers of them somewhere where they could get those materials and equipment. It was quite eye-opening.
Now, circling back to your experiences with this transition to online learning, what specific challenges did you experience?
So there were a lot of direct impacts on the degree itself and the university itself, and then there were a lot of indirect impacts on how COVID made me feel and how that affected my work. But it was really just working by yourself, which is not what our degree is about. While we have lecturers who guide us a lot in our practical design processes, a lot of it is peer learning. And that's why the studio is so useful, because you're literally sitting with your peers. You speak to them about their ideas, they speak to you about yours. Whereas being at home and being alone, you don't get to do that. And there are ways around it. I think we scheduled quite a lot of like Discord calls and stuff like that to share things amongst friends and peers. But I really struggled when I got stuck with my work to progress because I didn't have that kind of input. But with the theory subjects, I think everything was quite okay.
How did you deal with those challenges?
So I don't have the best advice, but when I could, I would try and contact friends, have phone calls. I think that's something that really gets me going.
How did the transition impact your mental health?
2020 was quite a terrible year for me. Mentally, my mental health was so bad that I couldn't keep up with my assignments. I didn't really feel like I was learning anything. I felt like I was living day to day just to meet deadlines. And I think that they gave us a lot more work thinking we had a lot more time just because we were at home. As much as the university tried to cater to everyone's needs, it's almost impossible to understand how different everyone's experiences were. During the hard lockdown, it was 5 weeks of no contact with any human being. I know it was difficult for everyone. Even if they were with their families, they got frustrated with their families and not seeing other people. And then I never really saw my family. I was very lonely, and instead of reaching out at the beginning, I kind of just caved in. It was very difficult and kind of went down a downward spiral. I ended up failing the year. I know a lot of people who did fail. I think it was a combination of things, but definitely the pandemic contributed.
Was there any kind of support to deal with some of those challenges?
The first thing that my mind goes to is our university has free counseling psychologists. I actually started seeing one in the middle of 2020, and that really helped me a lot.
If you were to think back to the online learning and teaching experience, what would you say are the benefits?
On the theory side, I liked being able to watch recorded lectures in my own time. We underestimate how much we zone out, and now I'm used to being able to, go back, check what did they say.
Comparing 2020 to 2021, how is the learning going? Is it still online? What has been the format that it's taking place right now?
Honestly, it keeps changing based on the presidential addresses, and around maybe March last year, we started going back 1 day a week for studio days. So that helped a lot with that peer learning. You could also use the studio on your own time when you needed to, complying with the COVID restrictions and social distancing. But we have never, completely returned. There's uncertainty about this year. They say that we're supposed to go back, but I don't know what that really means. But I did get to be on campus a lot more than 2020.
What impact has, the reopening had on your learning?
I definitely, improved a lot in 2021. I think it's sort of getting used to how things were and a little bit of normalcy coming back. I could see people, I could see my friends. I did really well in 2021. Things were looking up, emotionally as well.
What has kept you motivated?
I actually saw this picture that says the module I failed last year, I passed this year with distinction. So I saw that and I was like, I want that to be me. I want to be able to say that, I am actually capable. And I started getting really good marks for the stuff that I was failing.
That's really, really amazing. And really congratulations on getting through that. And I can only see it going upwards from here.
I really hope so. I think so. I think this year's going to be very difficult, but I'm doing well. So hopefully it's good.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for speaking with us.